Христос воскрес!
Воістину воскрес!
Христос воскрес!
Христос воскрес!
Last Sunday we did say that. So what I wanted to talk to you about today has a little bit to do with the gospel, but it also has to do with something very, very practical that we have to think about in our church. As you know, we are not currently together. And so the church has been running and operating through a couple of people who will come in and do the work for us. And while other things in the church don't need people to do them because we're not here, it's something important that we need to talk about. So when we all are able to reconvene, we're going to need to have other people step up to the plate. And it's something that we tend to ignore because it's really easy when other people are doing a job to think that, no, we'll never have to do it. If we always had our elders with us who just ran the church and ran it flawlessly, we would never think about what it would take for us to eventually take up that same position. And so it's something that now falls on us that in this time when we are not here, we need to reflect on what we're going to do when we come back. Because it won't be enough for us to just resume business as usual. Nothing since this point is going to be business as usual. We're not the same church. We're not the same culture or country. We've been ravaged by a disease that has, quite frankly, taken hold of every part of our society. And that includes the church. It wouldn't be normal that we would be excluded from here. And yet, here we are, with an empty church. And so when we come back, what are we going to do? When we are in fewer numbers, we don't have a choir that's going to be there for us to sing everything. It's going to be upon the few of us who are allowed in the church at a time to actually sing. And while Connie and Ed do a wonderful job, when there are more of us here, it would be great to hear more voices. If we are allowed at most 10 people, if 9 of us sang, that'd be great. But if we keep not singing, expecting the choir to pull all of that slack, eventually we're not going to have a choir, and are we going to sit here in a quiet church? I certainly hope not. If we reach a day when people aren't able to hold candles, and they've been given a break, because of course we have cameras in the front of the aisle. But if we reach a day when they can't hold candles anymore because they're too old, or they're not here, are we just going to stop doing that? Are we going to let a tradition of the church go because we're too embarrassed to stand up in front of our friends and neighbors? And it's something that relates to the gospel today. If you hear and sort of read between the lines of what everybody's saying, it's all very, very petty. That's all it is. The Pharisees multiple times mock this guy over and over because he's saying stuff that they just don't want to hear. Multiple times, they bring up, give glory to God, you've been healed, but we know that Jesus is a sinner. Obviously, we think that he's terrible. He's a sinner. And so the guy rebukes them, saying, well, they wanted to hear the story a second time. And he's like, why would you want to hear it again? Do you want to be Christ's disciples as well? Is that why you're hitting me for this story? And their response is, you're his disciple. That's as much you're going out and having somebody be like, I think that your opinion's wrong, and you being like, you're a poophead. It's a terrible argument. It's not an insult to have been like, oh, you're Christ's disciple. It's petty. It's the same thing that his parents were so afraid of being kicked out of church that they resorted to pettiness and said, you ask our son. If you're going to kick people out, he's of age, kick him out. We don't care what he did. He's blind. He's doing his own thing. He's an adult. And it's the same thing at the very end. That he gives this wonderful exhortation of the fact that maybe Christ is a sinner. We don't know. We don't know if he's God or not, but can anybody who is not from God work miracles? And this guy worked a miracle. In any of the scriptures that we know, nobody who was born blind has ever received sight. And this guy gave me my sight. There's something about him that maybe is greater than you think. And again, that pettiness seeps in, and they just yell at him, like, who are you to teach us? We're Pharisees. We're better than you. And then they kick him out of the temple. It's petty. And it's something that we have to remember when we come back here, is to not be the same. It is very, very easy for us to think that somebody else is going to do a job and to be petty about it and say, that's not my job to do. I don't have to do it. Somebody else is doing it for me. And so I never have to stoop so low as to do it. I never have to worry about it. And I'm telling you now that while you're not here is the time to worry about it. Think about what you can do for this church when you come back. Think about what you can do for any of your neighbors and friends who are here when we return. Because it's not something that can be taken idly. When we get back, we don't know what sort of thing we're going to face. We're not just going to pick up and dust everything off and act like it's all been 100% fine. We've been surviving during this time, but we've been barely surviving. This is not church as normal. This isn't life as normal. And so it's something to think about. And so I wanted to bring up a couple of quotes regarding this as well. That St. John Chrysostom said, when we want mercy from God, we must first show ourselves worthy of his mercy. And again, if you are not doing anything for your church, except showing up here, expecting that God is taking attendance, but you're praying that God be merciful to you, why would God show you mercy if you're doing nothing to deserve it? If you're doing nothing to earn it, why should God answer the prayers that you give? He's asking you to work for your church. He's asking you to give any sacrifice for your church. And that sacrifice may very well be just something simple that needs to be done. Something easy. But it takes you saying yes to that job in order to fulfill that. And then secondly, it's very easy for us to think about work for the church as something that we don't want to admit to doing. Yeah, how many times would we, if we had something to do in church, look at friends of ours and then feel embarrassed if we said, I can't come to your party, I can't do something with you, I can't go out to dinner with you, I have to go to church. Societally, it's embarrassing. Our culture wants us to think that going to church is something terrible, it's something old, it's something lame. Why would you go to church when you could do something fun? But, as St. Ignatius of Antioch said, our work is not in persuasion, for Christianity is most powerful when it is hated by the world. And if you think about it, society telling you that church is not as important as doing something else is exactly Christianity being hated by the world. And as Christ said, the world hated me first. And if you were of the world, they would love you. They wouldn't hate you. But we are called out of the world as Christ called his disciples. And so when there's something to do, when there's some sort of job or mantle that we need to take up to serve our church, it's our job not to persuade people that church is okay. It's to do it and let them hate us. I can't tell you how many times growing up that I had friends who were disappointed that I couldn't go to a sleepover because I had church the next morning. And they said, well, why don't you skip it? Church is boring. Church is pointless. I can't tell you how many times in high school and in college I had to explain to my friends that I thought that this was important. How many times they had to look at me and say, well, maybe it's not. Have you ever thought about maybe the fact that church is stupid? They imagine that I was in this little bubble. I had never thought outside of it. And the important thing is the fact that it's not our job to persuade people that the church is worthwhile. It's to show them that it's worthwhile and to let them hate us until they realize that something's missing in their life that we have. And by doing our job, by offering ourselves to the church, by coming here and expecting that we have something to do, that when there is something that needs done, whether that be cleaning the church, offering yourself here, singing when nobody else is around, chanting, reading something, praying together out loud, or opening the pew book so you know where we are in the service, any of that, it is important. It is something worthwhile that we need to do. And when that is put upon you to do it, and you say no, you're letting the world win. You're inviting the rest of the world into the front doors of our church, and you're saying, maybe church is stupid. I'm going to sit here, but I'm going to make sure that the world thinks that maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Come into these doors, let them hate you outside of it, but always let the world see the fact that there is something that you have in your heart and in here that they do not. And after years upon years of them hating you, they're going to feel empty inside. And they're going to come to you and ask what you have that they're missing. And then we have the chance to invite them in. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Christ is risen.
Indeed he is risen.
Christos